Hello and welcome to episode 6 of CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast. Once again, I'm your host, the creator called BOAST, and with me tonight, again, Dvalin, the man, the myth, the legend. That's right, DVALINDK on YouTube and DVALIN on Twitch. Dvalin, welcome back to CORECAST.
Hello, and thanks for having him again. It's a long time since last.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to get back in the saddle and to bring you along for the ride, so to speak. It's been an interesting time for all of us, and I thought with quarantine and home office and all of this that I would have more time for the podcast and be able to actually do some spin-off ideas that I had. But it turns out that I have less time for everything. So that's been a real interesting eye-opener for me. But yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be recording. I have so much fun doing this, and so I thank you for joining me tonight. Today is German Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And Dvalin, you're a dad. So happy Father's Day to you as well.
Well, thank you.
You spoke
You
a bit.
too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a day of dads, a day of gamer dads as well. You spoke a bit about gaming with your dad. And I'd like to actually focus a bit tonight on getting to know you and your story better. It's something that I had kind of planned to do with the community in more of a spin-off in its own kind of content. But since we've been in such a drought of information about the game and a drought in podcasts, I figured we jump in with some of the new information that we'll talk about tonight and work in some conversation about you as well. But first, we will start with the small update from the Corepunk development team, which is introducing camps. So that's what we'll start with tonight. And we will also discuss the content delay or the video content delay that's been spoken about. So that's what we'll get into first. And then to follow that up, we'll get to know Dvalin a little bit better. We'll see what he's ready to divulge to all of his fans out there. So I don't know if it was expected for everyone else, but this little tidbit of information was unexpected to me. But I think it was a nice addition to the pause that we have and to the fact that the live stream or the gameplay video has been mentioned that it will be delayed to next month, I believe. Dvalin, that's correct?
Yeah, next month.
Yeah. So in the meantime, though, they've dropped a news article called Corepunk Camps. And so that's pretty cool. We get a little bit more information in here, and along with some really beautifully designed and put together set pieces which show off the different camps. So we'll put a link to that in the description, and you can see for yourself these very nice set pieces which show off a couple of the different camps, from sort of human characters to creatures to something in between. That said, we are looking forward to more gameplay. Everyone's looking forward to more gameplay, but we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So Corepunk Camps, Dvalin, you've already done a video on this, right?
Yeah. I've been talking on it. It's quite a very interesting topic, actually.
Yeah, I think so. And I think each of the points made within this news article are almost their own topics to discuss, which is really cool. So we'll also link your video in the description as well, so you can check out further detail and exploration on Corepunk Camps with Dvalin. But let's get jumping into it. The first line, it says, enemies reside everywhere in Kovala, and only cities and villages are big enough to remain untouched, but who knows for how long. So what that's saying right off the bat is that there are enemies everywhere outside of the villages and cities, and they are putting pressure onto those places, and it's only a matter of time before those places are potentially invaded by the enemies. But really, straight off the bat, it's letting you know there's going to be a lot of baddies out there to go after.
Yeah, and I mean the last word they have, like, it can always change or something. I mean, it sounds like in the future that we are potentially going to see baddies, monsters, NPCs, AIs actually storming cities.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Some tower defense worked in there. The potential of building these up, or supporting them, or repairing them and defending them is a really cool idea. And again, these set pieces that are displayed here, of course, they're not screenshots of entire worlds. They're handcrafted, bespoke set pieces that show off these individual camps. Are just fantastic to look at. The lighting, the design, the depth, everything in there is really speaking to how beautiful this game will be, and really shows off that art style and that art quality that really caught my eye in the first place.
Yeah, I mean I'm especially out after the skeletons they have created, and the skeletons on the pictures that we see from, well, it's basically is gameplay. I mean, pictures, and the skeletons they created is like the perfect skeletons art for me. It's a mix between cartoon from games like World of Warcraft that is a bit maybe too much cartoonish, but this is like cartoon, and then they blended it together with some 3D, and then they just got this perfect mix where it's not really too horror-ish.
Yeah.
It's still something I would put in front of my kid, because it's still like friendly skeletons, but still they look badass.
Yeah, agreed. I think so, along the lines with the spiders as well, and it's just so gorgeous to look at. I love it. A lot of it
Yeah.
looks really just completely hand painted, and the way they've layered it with the background as well in this display is really well done. So to follow up on that, it says that you will run into various monsters along your journey. Some spawn in specific locations, while others wander about, springing from their secret hideouts to mount an attack. You might be lucky enough to face a solitary foe, but let's be honest, more likely than not, you'll need to stand up against an entire monster camp. So a lot of information just in that section there. And it's talking about the monsters that we're going to face. It's going to be different kinds, various kinds of monsters. There's going to be those that spawn in camps while others are wandering. And I really hope from this statement, and we've seen it really well done in games like Guild Wars 2, Star Wars, The Old Republic, these world bosses, and I think I even watched you fight one in Elder Scrolls Online, like a big dragon.
Yeah.
And these world bosses are such a fantastic addition to MMOs. I absolutely love them. I love that it rallies the server together. You see everyone appearing on the map, running to the location and trying to lend a hand and get a piece of that loot at the end. And I really hope that this is part of that as well. The wandering enemies is really cool because this adds a bit of a break to just the classic spawn in one location, meaning that you will potentially, especially with the fog of war, run into an enemy that you did not mean to along your way, and maybe have to fight them, or maybe want to fight them as well, which is really cool. And then some secret hideouts, so they're going to be jumping out of their holes in the ground, to their trapdoors, stuff like that. And it says that besides the singular enemies out there, you should be prepared for multiple enemies. So that's a mouthful and a lot of information. Dvalin, what's your take on this paragraph here?
Well, how I read this paragraph here is basically the first thing I begin to think about is League of Legends. And you know, in League of Legends they have this jungling area, and it basically for me sounds like these camps is basically jungling areas in League of Legends, because in League of Legends in the jungling you also have the very specific places where here spawns the red buff, the big red monster, here spawns the blue monster, and here spawns the raptor group, here's the wolf group. So it's like,
Right.
I think it's basically they have borrowed, not stolen, borrowed the camp from League of Legends and also Dota 2, of course, and added it to Corepunk. So, you know, there's going to be these static camps. Everyone knows, okay, up there, that's the camp, that's the camps over there. And then also, of course, they mentioned this, that they're going to be wandering, walking camps also that you meet randomly. And of course, also then you have the camps, as you said, that they are like surprising people. So they maybe go into a cave, and no one knows that they are in here, and boom, sheet up, spring jumps out and attack you.
Yeah, totally. It's really cool that your mind went to League of Legends, and I was thinking more traditionally MMO content. So that's really cool, because that shows the diversity in how we see the game and how we see the content that they're showing, and what we think about it as well. I think that's really cool. And it definitely does hint to the MOBA style camps and those creatures in there, with the smaller ones and the mama or the papa creature there as well. And you have to think about the order that you kill them in. And I think it speaks to that a little bit later in this news article as well, which is what we'll get down to next, because it really does start to get into some dynamic ideas. So in Corepunk, the camps vary in difficulty level. Typical monsters usually don't have more than one skill. This is a very important point in there as well. Even if you choose to play as a lone wolf, you'll still be able to knock them off, but it won't be as easy as you might think. You must be smart and skilled to win the fight. Other camps hold monsters with unique skills and loot. Some may even have a leader. Enemies work together. They assist each other and fight as a well-coordinated team, making them even harder to defeat. So this, I think, is the most important paragraph in the entire article. It talks about the difficulty level. It talks about the camps varying from camps where monsters are pretty basic, where they have one attack, to other camps where monsters or NPC or villains, baddies, mobs, if you will have more than one attack or ability possible. And with that risk comes a reward of loot as well, or better loot. And then some may have a leader, as we spoke to before. So they have someone that's calling the shots, maybe even giving them some sort of inspiration buff to stay in the fight, that kind of thing. It says they assist each other and fight as a well-coordinated team, making them harder to defeat. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that they only, I like the fact that they only have like one spell each of the mobs, because in World of Warcraft it was very traditionally when you went into dungeons like Ashul Nerub from the Lich King expansion, then you always knew, okay, this mob here is going to throw something at us, and we have to interrupt it, or else we're pretty much dying. So everyone knew, okay, this is the feared mobs, we just have to interrupt. But if no one else interrupted, then we're going to die. And I hope the same is going to be in the Corepunk, that we know this mob here is the guy who is casting Shadow Frost Fingers, that is removing 70% of our health.
Yeah.
And of course they can, I'm sure they're not going to just put random spells everyone. So sometimes you meet the same mob having another spell. I'm sure they all would have like, generic spells in the culture they're coming from, like a spider throws web, a goblin throws nest, something like that.
Yeah. And we saw in the trailer, and we even saw in the follow-up as well, I believe it was Eugene playing, and he fought this, it was spiders as well, I think. And he was dying in the trailer, and then he was doing another playthrough, and ideally showing how, based on the artifacts and how you're kiting and how you're playing against these creatures, you could potentially turn a situation where on one hand you would die. You could turn this into a situation where you actually survive and came out with a victory. Ended up dying again anyway, but it goes.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
was the skeletons at the beach.
yes, exactly. Skeletons at the beach. And so that said, it does, say that you can be that lone wolf, but you're going to have a harder time. And from the trailers, we've seen that you're going to have a pretty hard time, I think. But yeah, it's cool. It talks about the diversity of these camps and the mobs within, and how they may react to you or attack you and that sort of stuff. So that's really cool. There is more to it, and it gets even more interesting as we get into this next section, because I did just say I think the section above is probably the most important part of the article, but then you get into this section here and it really starts to talk about how these aren't just going to be mobs where they're all kind of attacking you at once with basic skills, but instead there will be some diversity to the group, and they will potentially be coming at you with a sort of holy trinity, so to speak, of their own, with some disables, some ranged attacks, some stuns, this kind of stuff that they could really use against you, and which will also force your hand into deciding who you want to attack. So it says you might come across a camp of archers, tanks equipped with nets, and assassins. Archers spray you with arrows, stunning you from afar. It's no easy task to rid yourself of them, particularly since they always keep their distance. While you try to handle the archers, the tanks will regularly try to catch you in their nets, and assassins will never miss a chance to attack, especially when you're most vulnerable. The moment you're trapped in a net or stunned, they'll attack, dealing significant damage. In camps like these, you'll need to plan your attack and prioritize which monsters to kill first, or better yet, find other adventurers to team up with. Each encounter will pose a true challenge, even to a party. It's cool because it really adds this element of classes to the creatures out there.
Yeah, and I mean that text is it's reminding me a little bit of the same text as they showed previously. But yeah, I definitely like it that the mobs are gonna be actually classes and not just zombies who just auto attack you, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah, it makes them feel smarter than they probably really are, or than they could be if they were just scratching at you.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like they're coordinating their attacks, and it makes it feel like you have to be smarter about how you approach it and figure out which ones you take out first. And yeah, it's really cool. It's a great piece of information to share right now, I think, because it's more info on the game. It's more info about how the game will play. And I wasn't expecting it. Were you expecting something like this along the way, or?
No. I was 100% sure we are getting no news until next month, and then they just randomly posted this one.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's appreciated. I think it's really appreciated. So there's a follow-up to that. It says, the higher the risk, the greater the reward. Only after you clear the camp will you be able to find a chest with worthwhile loot. We hope you are now more prepared to face the dangers of Qualat, at least a little bit. So kill them all if you want to get paid.
And so Sebastian, he from the Corepunk community, he made me aware of this little text because it actually hides something behind it. And that is, this line here is basically telling you, don't be sad if you only kill one mob and someone comes and interrupt you with world PvP, because it's first when the whole camp is cleared, the chest is going to spawn, and probably it doesn't matter who killed the monsters because the chest is going to spawn. So it's about who is actually looting the chest first.
Yikes. That adds another element to getting ambushed.
Exactly. There. It's also kind of it's making ganking a little bit more funny, because now the ganker actually has potentially, ganking him and take the reward, but also the person who's clearing the camp doesn't need to like finish the camp. He can just basically run away from it and then come back and take the chest. So it just makes it, it just adds a new layer to it.
Yeah, sure. I think it's cool. I think it's also cool that you could potentially have someone doing your hard work for you and let them clear the camp for you, then come in, clear them, and then take the reward as well. It's hardcore, man. It's going to be a hardcore game in both PvP and PvE. I think anyone that's on the PvE side of things and has been a bit wary of where the PvP is headed, I think you really need to worry about how you're going to survive through PvE as well in this game. So I think it's not going to be for the faint of heart. I think this is going to be a game for people that really are relentless and want to really prove themselves. And I think it's going to be a hard game in both aspects.
Yeah, I think it will be close up to what basically World of Warcraft Vanilla was. That if you pull the one mob too much, or if you pull more than one mob, you're basically dead.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. But the content and the news update is definitely appreciated by me, at least, and I think it's great to get a glimpse into this. I think these set pieces that were created here are just really gorgeous, and to see the lighting in there and how it all looks, and the glowy bits and the shadows and all of this, I think is really cool.
And just imagine that they are explaining this camp system so well. Just imagine when they're going to explain castle, siege, arena, battleground, dungeon, raids. I can just imagine how good these articles are going to be.
Right. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, thanks for the update. And so that's been Corepunk Camps.
Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to Corepunk, an MMORPG where you'll experience fog of war in a vast, seamless open world. Miles and miles of wilderness to get lost in. Discover a small camp in the middle of nowhere. Or a busy metropolis booming with life and activity. You are free to go wherever you want. Use public transport to reach remote locations fast and safe. Begin your journey by creating a hero. Each has its own unique role, abilities, and a set of fighting styles. Complete quests for NPCs who are too busy to do it themselves.
You're gonna need a better gear for that.
Kill monsters to earn gold. Shred them with your best move. Be careful, though. They get pretty crafty when fighting as a unit. Grow crops. Chop wood. Mine ore. Trade goods for missing resources to craft the weapon you deserve. Suit up. It won't make you stronger, but you'll look absolutely fabulous. Choose a set of talents. Boost yourself with artifacts to become the ultimate war machine. Use Fog of War wisely to hunt down and ambush your enemies. Attack those who dared to take your farming spot. Then chill in a city, show off your loot, and find reckless companions to take on a challenge that no one else has the guts for.
We will come again. We'll come again until we're done. 'Cause only those who win, only those who stand their ground. No one leaves until we're done. When we stand as one, we won't leave till we're done.
alpha beta at corepunk.com.
I'm here again, as we've discussed, with who I like to call the man of the Corepunk community. He's going to say I'm overhyping him too, maybe like Sebastius did, but he's been providing content. And what I like about your channel is that you're providing content for this game that I'm really hyped on. But you're also providing content from other games. And you've recently worked into your rotation and your routine a weekly news show as well. And that's really cool because if you want to stay informed, it's a great place to do it. And since I'm going to you for my Corepunk content anyway, and I might as well get some other news from you as well. And I do have to say, I have checked out multiple games that I probably would have never even heard of before from some of your content. So it's been cool to follow. I have really taken a dive into some of these games that you've shown as part of your news features or part of just your regular revisits in 2020 features as well.
Yeah.
But man, none of them have tickled my fancy like the Corepunk reveal has. So still my number one most anticipated game. That said, before you were doing Corepunk, you were doing other things. And as you mentioned before, you've played games with your dad. So as I did previously on my Corepunk, or CORECAST rather, Conversations podcast episode, let's get to know you a bit better. How did this all start? How did you become the Dvalin that we know today?
Well, we have to go back 12 years.
Okay.
So, so sit down and listen good.
Yeah. Grab your popcorn and your hot chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. Actually, we have to go back 15 years. So 15 years ago, a game called World of Warcraft released. And some of you might have heard about it. I hope at least.
Maybe.
That was the game that introduced me to the online world. I was probably 12 years old that day. And that was a game that I also introduced to my father. And he used to be a gamer also who played, if you ask anyone who's plus 40, 50, they will probably tell you, I have played Command and Conquer. It's just, it's just a very popular game for that generation. And my father, he used to play Command and Conquer, and until I showed him World of Warcraft, and the game released 15 years ago, and I was playing in the daytimes, and then when I went to bed, he was actually sitting in my room at my PC playing then at the nights while I was trying to sleep next to him. And
that's amazing.
And I had no problems with it because I feel like it was so cool that he wanted to play the same game as me, and so I was just kind of enjoying that he was sitting and playing next to me while I was sleeping. Kind of funny. And then now, still after 15 years to the day, we are still playing. Well, sometimes playing World of Warcraft. I mean, the games has ups and down times, so that's. But my journey the last 15, well, actually the last 12 years on YouTube has been about World of Warcraft. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, Dvalin, that's the World of Warcraft YouTuber, right?" And yeah, and some of my friends actually made fun of me because they said, "Ha ha ha, you're the World of Warcraft YouTuber." And I was like, I don't want to be the World of Warcraft YouTuber. I want to be a YouTuber, not a World of Warcraft YouTuber. So I wanted to like break out of this inner circle, but I didn't know how to get out of it. So basically, just to say, the last 12 years was basically all about World of Warcraft, nothing special about it, just World of Warcraft. And my views numbers has never been higher when I did World of Warcraft because it is such a popular topic.
Yeah.
But then I'm not sure. Well, then I guess a half year ago or something like that, when Corepunk they decided to release their trailer, something happened inside me.
So this was really, because I was going to ask you, what was the first content that you made outside of World of Warcraft content? And so you're about to tell us now that the Corepunk content was literally the first content you made outside of World of Warcraft?
Yeah, because every time I made something else that was not World of Warcraft, my video got like 20 views.
Okay,
And
but
then
you
when
you did make other stuff though.
it, well, yeah, or let's say I tried,
Okay.
but all my quote fans, they didn't wanted it. They wanted World of Warcraft.
Okay.
So every time I try to step outside, I actually also try to do a lot of. I probably have 111 of, I think, or maybe 40 or 50 videos about Guild Wars 2, because I got hyped about that game also back when it released, but I didn't get any attention on it. So
Okay.
I always ended getting back to World of Warcraft because I was in an evil circle of fans who only wanted to watch me talk about that game.
I see. Yeah, it's tough, huh?
Yeah, you get, and I've heard the same thing about people who are famous about Fortnite. If they do a video about other things that not Fortnite, they lose subscribers, they lose fans. It's just that very evil inner circle you get stuck in a game.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the game anymore, like I actually today I don't really like World of Warcraft anymore. Sorry, Blizzard. Then it's not fun. I mean, I used to make WoW class guides every day, and while I was doing them, I was actually, it felt like cutting my arm and pouring salt into it. But I had to like feast my fans.
And you felt like you had to make it.
Exactly.
That's a tough place to be. That's a really tough place to be.
Exactly. I was not enjoying my YouTube.
I see.
But yeah, but again, then the Corepunk trailer released, and that was the first time where I was like, okay, wow, I'm gonna create a video watching this trailer, and then from that day, my life changed.
Yeah, it's great. I really I can believe it, but I can't believe it at the same time that's like really the first piece of content outside of these other ones that again didn't really take off, but that you made outside of Warcraft stuff. So really, really cool, because that, again, as I've mentioned before, that's what got me into the game and got me checking it out. So that's cool to see. So you played some Guild Wars 2. You've played Destiny, I know from our conversations. What are some other games that we maybe haven't talked about that you dabbled with? And I'm not talking about specifically for revisiting a game for content, but just personally. What are some other games that you've gotten into over the years?
Probably games that I have been playing a lot and created also a lot of content about is, of course, World of Warcraft is number one, and then number two would be Guild Wars 2, and then number three would be Elder Scrolls Online, and then it would probably be Heroes of Storm is number four. Those four games is probably my most played games over the last 12 years. World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars, and Elder Scrolls Online. Destiny, I've always had a problem with that game because the game capture function when recording is not working with Destiny. You have to do like some workarounds with Destiny and so on. So that always like throws me out. But yeah, that's probably the games that I've been stuck on. And I've also created, 55 videos about Elder Scrolls Online and 50 videos about Guild Wars. But for World of Warcraft, I probably have like 300 videos or something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, 955.
Did you get into Heroes of the Storm because you were so into World of Warcraft?
Yeah, that was my introduction into MOBAs. And that game was so easy because you don't have to buy items and so on.
Yeah.
So it was like a kid games MOBA.
Yeah, my buddy. It's funny. So a good friend of mine, we worked together at the beginning, and then he went off to Epic, and he was like at the time was big into playing Dota, and he called Heroes of the Storm Fisher Price, like the Fisher Price MOBA, which is basically like the Tonka trucks of MOBAs, and it is. But then what's funny is he went on to work on Fortnite. He works on Fortnite, so Fortnite is truly the Fisher Price of battle royales. But yeah, that's interesting because I had so many friends that were playing either Dota or League of Legends. And I love MOBAs. I love this concept I love how these games play. I love everything about MOBAs. I love the competition from it. I love just the esports and competitive play and the professional scene of this stuff. And I don't know. I just love everything about them. They've always been so attractive to me. But I never got into Dota. I didn't want to get into League. And so I also ended up playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm. And I really did like how it dumbs down everything. You have no items, like you said, but you also share experience, which is crazy. There's no last hits. You don't have to worry about any of this crazy mechanics.
No.
And it really puts the focus on just the action. And I thought that's really cool. So I did also play a lot of Heroes of the Storm myself. But yeah, that's cool. We definitely have some similarities in games. But we also have some differences as well. With World of Warcraft, I really started to understand the hype about it, started to come onto my radar when I went back to school. And I was like one of the older guys in school. And I went to school and I have a degree in game art and design. So I was at an art school studying to make games with a bunch of fellow gamer nerds around me. And it was it wasn't when World of Warcraft launched, but it was when it had like a fresh new bit of hype around it. And there were some younger guys in my class that just couldn't stop talking about the game, to the point where I wanted to have nothing to do with it. I wouldn't have played it if you paid me. But then a little while later, my friend said, there's the same kind of game, but in the Star Wars universe, and that was Star Wars Galaxies. And I was like, oh, okay. No, well, I'll check that out. And I played that, and that became one of my all-time favorite games. But that's how I didn't get into Warcraft or World of Warcraft. But other than that, yes, definitely some similarities. Is there anything you've played along the way that you didn't make content for that you were really into, or did you always make content for the stuff you played and that you were into?
No, I mean that was probably that was probably my blessing or even curse, that I couldn't play a game without making content for it. That's when I love a game, I'm like, oh, I love this. Then I get good to it, and then I learn stuff, and then I just start doing.
Yeah, you want to share it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like addicted to creating guides, because I always my entire life worked as an IT person who helps people who's not very good at IT. So
interesting.
Yeah, and that has kind of followed me. So now I enjoy creating guides. That's probably when Corepunk releases, the first thing you're gonna see me create videos about is guides. I'm gonna learn people how to spec, how to craft, how to harvest. It's like that's my type of thing. I love guiding people.
Yeah, very cool. I'm looking forward to it for sure. Yeah, I mean, just because of the hype that we're building within the community, and because of these unfortunate delays based on things really out of the control of the developers, there's going to be this like crazy feeling, this crazy excitement when the game launches, or at least I suppose before that as well. Whenever the public first gets access, closed beta, whatever it is, of getting in there and like finally seeing the world for the first time. And I feel like I'm going to be just sitting there stuck, not knowing what to do. But then I realize my muscle memory of video game playing will kick in, and I'll run out and kill some things and take their stuff and then go through the process. But I'm almost nervous for it, for that first moment. But at the same time, super excited. But yeah, where do you start? What do you do first? I guess that's how the story and any tutorial that may be in there, or whatever, however they guide us at the beginning of the game, is why that's so important, because it gives you that little push that you need, and then you can figure out the rest from there.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we get into Corepunk closed beta and we finally log in and play, I think, yeah, as you say, most of it is probably stopping up and like, are we actually in?
Exactly. Just because, it's been one of those things where it's been nothing but talk so far, right? It's just been nothing but conversations from everyone and speculation and ideas and opinions and, conversations going in every direction, just because that's what we have to do right now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting when all of these people that are sitting in the Discord and talking about the game, like finally get in there and play it. That's really cool. It's going to be a cool moment.
Yeah, and now that I just wanted to say this, now that we talked about before my gaming history about World of Warcraft and now Corepunk and how Corepunk they changed my life.
Yeah.
I just want to give you can say a shout out to Eugene, the producer of Corepunk team.
Yeah.
Because he is actually the reason for why I started doing videos about other games. Because, I've been doing videos for World of Warcraft the last 12 years, and I have not received a single email, never a like from World of Warcraft. And I had never, seen any contact. No, I've never seen even a developer or anything from World of Warcraft actually have ever saw my video, even though I have 4 million views on my World of Warcraft videos in total. I have never seen any sign of life that Blizzard they actually know I exist.
Right.
I had to manually contact the community manager of Blizzard and say, hey, I'm living. Do you have some kind of a community I can join? And he said, oh, well, okay, hi. I basically didn't know you existed, but yeah, you can join this community. And then, now I'm inside some kind of a secret community. But beside from that, I made one video about Corepunk, and 1 or 2 days later, I got an email from Eugene saying that he loves my video. And that email that just shaked and changed my world.
Yeah.
Wow, there's actually games out there who cares about what you do, because Blizzard they don't care about it's sorry to say, but they don't care about the content creators. And if you Google and YouTube it, you can see a lot of pro Hearthstone players. They don't get attention too from Blizzard. But then League of Legends, Riot contacts them and say, hey, we have this card game. We're going to pay for all your expenses, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, wow, is company actually doing this?
Right.
Because everyone has been stuck in this Blizzard world where, they are not really, they don't care about the content creators.
Well, they don't need to. That's the problem. Is they're so big and they have so much money, and now they have Activision money, and they don't really. Everyone is going to play their games and know about their games, and so they're kind of in a place where they don't need to care, which is sad. It's really sad.
But it's still nice to see that games like Riot, they are like being much more nicer. Even though I'm pretty sure that Riot they probably earn more money than World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, they don't really need to either. But
No.
it's just a different philosophy. It's a different mentality. And
and of course I know Corepunk has not released, and Eugene he's probably just doing his best for getting in nice touch with people so he can get the best launch of the game as possible. But still, what he does and the team does and what they do for content creators and all that, it's really amazing to see how they have done this. So if Eugene is listening to this, thanks for changing my life.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Anything else that we should know about you that we don't know yet, or that you've been holding out? Any secrets?
Not really. I mean, that was my little life history about gaming and my evil truth about Blizzard.
Yeah, well, like when you play a game like World of Warcraft, like you did, it doesn't really leave a lot of time for other games or other stuff. So
no.
The fact that you made it out of that dark hole and you're making other content now is really cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's the perfect time to say go subscribe and click notification on Dvalin's YouTube channel. It's going to be the place to be for Corepunk content as well as weekly news on gaming stuff. And it's going to be the place to be for those guides on how to be the best at Corepunk when the game is finally in our hands. Until that day, though, all we have is each other and conversations about the game. So it's been a pleasure to have another one of those conversations tonight with episode 6 of the Corepunk podcast. We talked about Corepunk Camps, which is really cool. And as Dvalin said, this kind of content is really nice and really well made, and it gives a good glimpse into potentially what we'll see from them on the rest of the content as they slowly reveal that to us. So looking forward to that as well. So shout out to the team there at Artificial Core for continuing to march along and do your best to get this stuff done and get it in front of us, because we really do appreciate it, and we look forward to getting to see the gameplay and then eventually getting into the game and getting our hands on it for ourselves. On behalf of Dvalin and CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast, I'm BOAST. It's been a pleasure. Dvalin, thanks again, as always, for joining me on this journey. I could probably sit here and talk a lot of stuff the whole time, but maybe it wouldn't make any sense. So I appreciate you being along for the ride.
Yeah, and again, thanks for having me. Sin. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and thanks for the shout outs.
Yeah, for sure. Happy Father's Day to any of the dads out there. And yeah, keep doing your thing. Keep doing what you do. Until next time, stay safe out there, and check out all of our content for more information on Corepunk. Have a good night.